There's huge innovations taking place right now in both our local economy but also globally. And of course, it's the digital revolution. And as part of this digital revolution, we're hearing much more about the sharing, collaborative economy. We're hearing that organizations like Uber and Airbnb are about sharing. And I want to stress that this is actually the very opposite of the truth. And the reason that those big companies, which are trying to be oligopolies, not even monopolies, the reason they can get away with that kind of thing is because we don't think of the economy beyond the tangible bit that we have a stake in. And what's great about cooperatives is that we do have a stake in them. And what's wrong about the global situation is that we don't have a stake in that. Now, it's very interesting because companies like Uber have been able to grow precisely because we as citizens have allowed capital to be mobile across borders. We've said, let's have free mobility of capital, let's have free trade, let's have free movement of labour, let's have no restrictions. Governments shouldn't manage these processes, we've argued, and we've voted for governments that have allowed that sort of so-called liberalisation of finance and trade. And what we find is that companies like Uber are now exploiting this to the full, so that they are then branding it as sharing, whereas in reality what they're doing is to try and capture not just a market, but a whole sector of the economy, in this case private vehicle hire, and dominate and control it. And what's fascinating is that in that sector, the stakeholders are the drivers, and they own the capital. They own the capital, they own the car, they've bought the car, they've put their own money into the car, and they maintain it, they fuel it, and they insure it. And insurance for these purposes is expensive. And Uber comes along and siphons off their profits, or a share of their profits, and calls that collaboration. Now, I'm of the view that we should be beginning to understand the big global economy and the fact that, and why Uber is able to do this. Because unless we understand that, we won't be able to do anything about managing the way companies like Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, and Facebook and so on are taking over our world. And the first thing we need to understand is that we have allowed them to do this through, for example, capital mobility. We find that co-op companies in Britain pay more in taxes than do these big global organizations. But that's because we've said to them, you can move your money and we don't care too much about that. Well, we can't tax them if they can move their money around. So we've got to learn that actually that bit of the global economy is something we need to understand. And secondly, we need to understand that what they're doing is exploiting the capital of small-time drivers, people who've got their own car, their own houses, and they are the capitalists. They've invested the money, they take the risks. And the big company in Silicon Valley simply extracts rent from that. Now, this is an opportunity, in my view, for cooperation. These drivers, these homeowners should be organizing collectives. They should be organizing cooperatives. And local authorities should be helping them to do that by saying that only cooperatives are able to operate in the car hire field or in the house renting field. And then, very happily, they can pay a fee to the software developer, which is in Silicon Valley, but actually they would be much more in control of their own destinies. They would have real stakes in this sector, in this bit of the economy, rather than just being, people who are having rent extracted from them. And so I want the cooperative movement to think bigger, to think about the structure of the global economy and how it's having an impact on all of us. We're all impacted by Uber and Amazon and to think about this as an opportunity for greater cooperation and collaboration, real cooperation and collaboration, as opposed to the fake cooperation and collaboration of big global oligopolies.